In the heart of Accra, where glass towers scraped the sky and champagne flowed like water, lived a man who had everything except peace. Kweku Mensah was 31, absurdly wealthy, and completely exhausted. He sat alone in his penthouse suite, dressed in a crisp white robe, staring blankly at the city lights that glittered far below like a galaxy trapped beneath his feet. The sound of clinking glasses and hollow laughter filtered in from the party on the floor below. His party, but he didn't care to join. There was a woman downstairs who only flirted with him after spotting his watch. His supposed best friend Nana was already on Instagram Live, pretending to be closer to him than he actually was. Every smile felt bought, every laugh rehearsed. He sipped his drink and sighed. His phone buzzed. A message from his personal assistant. Meeting with the French investors is at 9 a.m. sharp. Also, the new Ferrari has arrived. Another Ferrari. Another meeting. Another morning he didn't want to wake up to. He turned off the phone, stood up, and looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't recognize the man looking back. "I need a break," he whispered, "from all of this." And just like that, the idea struck. The next morning, Kweku called in sick, cancelled all appointments, and locked the doors of his mansion. By afternoon, he was in jeans and a faded shirt, standing inside a used car dealership on the edge of town. The manager, a toothless man named Ebo, eyed him suspiciously. "You sure you want this old taxi, boss? Tain't gotsy. The brakes scream louder than my wife when she sees a cockroach." Kweku grinned. "It's perfect." The taxi was a dusty yellow with blue side stripes, a cracked dashboard, and a personality that creaked and coughed like an old village storyteller. He paid cash, registered it under a fake name, and drove it straight to the rural town of Biposo, where nobody knew his face or his billions. Biposo was a village of narrow dirt roads, corrugated roofs, and people who actually looked each other in the eyes when they talked. The taxi bumped and bounced into the village, raising eyebrows as it passed goats and gossiping aunties. At the market square, Kweku parked and stepped out. "Who's this fine stranger with the big city car?" one woman whispered. "I bet he's from Kumasi, trying to show off," another scoffed. An old man limped toward him, peered up and asked, "So, what brings you here, young driver?" Kweku smiled. "Looking for passengers, sir." "You need a ride." The man cackled. "We usually just walk. But if you're driving, you'll meet Amma. She's the one who makes sure no fool overcharges the villagers." Amma. The name tickled something in his chest. Sounded like trouble. Later that day, Kweku was sitting in his cab near the well, waiting for any potential passengers when he saw her. Amma. She was barefoot, balancing a basket of vegetables on her head like it was made of air. She wore a yellow dress that fluttered as she walked. Her skin glowed in the afternoon sun, and her eyes, serious, observant, not easily impressed, met his. She glanced at his car, then at him. "You're new," she said. "I'm a taxi driver. Just arrived from the city. Looking to work." She tilted her head. "City drivers usually try to scam people here. You better not try that." "I don't charge extra," he said, grinning. "First ride is free for anyone named Amma." She rolled her eyes but didn't walk away. A chicken suddenly dashed across the road, flapping wildly. Kweku jumped and hit his horn out of reflex. The horn gave a weak, dying croak. Amma burst out laughing. "I hope your brakes are better than your horn." And for the first time in months, Kweku laughed too. That evening, he parked the taxi under a mango tree and walked to the chop bar. The smells of groundnut soup and grilled fish drew him like a song. He sat at a wooden bench, ordered kenki, and watched as locals ate, argued, and gossiped without phones in their faces. A young boy ran up, eyes wide. "Mr. Driver, are you rich in Accra?" Kweku smirked. "No. I'm just a driver." The boy grinned. "Good. Rich people don't eat kenki like this." Later, as the moon rose and the sky turned deep blue, Amma walked past the chop bar, nodded at him, and for the first time smiled. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't impressed. It was real. The next morning, the rooster's crow came earlier than expected. Kweku groaned, sat up inside the small guest house he had rented, and blinked into the sunlight pouring through the wooden window slats. There was no AC, no glass shower, and definitely no espresso machine. But the quiet chirp of birds and the far-off bleating of goats had a strange kind of rhythm. Peaceful rhythm. He got dressed, washed his face from a bucket, and stepped out into the street. Villagers were already awake, sweeping, cooking, trading, and everyone nodded to him now. He wasn't just the stranger anymore. He was the new taxi man. He made his way to the taxi and climbed in. The seat springs jabbed his back, but he smiled anyway. He cranked the engine, which responded with a metallic cough, then a grumble, then finally gave in. It was time to earn some real passengers. He didn't wait long. Just near the palm wine seller's hut, a short, stocky man flagged him down. The man carried a sack of yams and wore a scowl as permanent as his sideburns. "Driver," he grunted, "mark it. Fast, fast." Kweku nodded, took the sack, and they were off. As they bounced along the dusty road, the man muttered under his breath, eyes fixed out the window. "Something wrong, sir?" Kweku asked. "It's that fool Kwabena," the man growled. "Tapping my mango tree at night. Thinks I don't know. That tree is older than his entire family line." Kweku blinked. "You're fighting over a mango tree." "Not fighting. Protecting heritage," the man snapped. "The tree leans on my land. Everyone knows it." By the time they reached the market, Kweku had heard the entire saga of the great mango dispute. Who planted it, who ate the first fruit, who once threatened to chop it down out of jealousy. The driver couldn't help but grin. This was a different world, but one that felt more real. After dropping off his passenger, he lingered in the market a while, sipping chilled sabalo and watching the swirl of colors and sounds. Baskets of peppers, children running with plantain chips, women haggling with pure poetry. The air smelled like home, even though he was pretending not to have one. Then came the unexpected moment. "Kweku!" He turned sharply. She wore a dark green head wrap today, and a long blue skirt that dusted the earth with every step. Her arms were folded. "You didn't say you were new." He raised an eyebrow. "I said I came from the city. New to the village." She squinted at him. "You didn't really say much." He laughed. "You didn't ask much." She grinned, then shook her head. "Fair." They walked for a bit, quietly. Kweku looked over at her, curious. "What do you do here, Amma?" She shrugged. "I help my grandmother sell things at the stall. Help at the school sometimes. Make soap when I can. The usual. No plans to leave the village." She stopped. "Why?" "So I can chase some dream in the city that might never come true. Here I'm known. Here I'm not chasing anything." He nodded slowly. Her words stuck with him. By afternoon, a commotion erupted near the village center. Shouting, barking, and the unmistakable sound of mangoes plopping against the earth. Kweku drove closer and parked. Two men stood beneath a huge mango tree. One was his earlier passenger, the stocky, angry man. The other, tall and wiry, with a smug grin. "Thief!" the stocky man shouted. "It leaned into my yard," the other yelled back. "I measured it. Your measuring stick is crooked." A crowd gathered, laughing and shouting suggestions. Amma arrived too, folding her arms. Kweku leaned toward her. "This happens often." She nodded. "Once every mango season. They'll argue. Then the village elders will sit with them and eat the mangoes themselves. Wait, the elders eat the evidence. Exactly, she said, cracking up. The laughter was interrupted by the loud voice of Amma's grandmother, who had appeared out of nowhere. You two are embarrassing our ancestors, she barked. Arguing over fruit like toddlers over candy. The men froze. Everyone hushed. Amma leaned to Kweku and whispered, "This is where the real drama begins." Her grandmother walked between the two men and looked at the tree. "This mango tree belongs to neither of you. It belongs to all of us. It grew from the land, not from your belly buttons. Next time either of you touch it, I'll chop it down myself and plant cassava instead." Everyone gasped. The two men looked horrified. "But Mama Aba, please. No buts. You want mangoes. Climb your own dreams." With that, she turned and stormed off. Kweku, stunned and amused, watched her go. Amma laughed. "Now you've met the real leader of Biposo." That evening, he found himself back at the chop bar, but this time he had company. Amma sat across from him, eating grilled tilapia and rice balls. "So, why really are you here, Kweku?" He paused, followed. "I got tired of everything. The noise, the fake smiles. I wanted to remember what real looked like." She stared at him for a long second. "You're running away." He shook his head. "Maybe I'm running toward something." She didn't press further. But the next morning, as he started his taxi again, he noticed something odd. A boy on the side of the road stared too long. A market woman narrowed her eyes. And as he passed Amma's grandmother's compound, he could have sworn he heard her mutter, "That boy's hands don't look like a driver's." He drove on. But the wheels of suspicion had begun to turn. The next week flew by like dry leaves in a harmattan wind. Every morning, Kweku was up with the sun, warming up the old taxi and taking passengers around the village and into the nearby town. With every trip, every bounce on the dusty road, he was collecting something more valuable than fares: stories. He learned that Ma Akua, the widow with the missing teeth, had once been a singer in the president's favorite highlife band. He learned that the quiet young man who sold roasted maize had a twin sister he hadn't spoken to in 3 years after a fight about a goat. And he learned that Biposo wasn't just a village. It was a living, breathing theater of dreams, secrets, and dramas more colorful than any city tabloid. But one thing was becoming clear. Kweku's disguise was starting to crack. Started with the kids. "Kweku taxi man," they called him, running beside his car. "But your hands are too soft." Then the elders. "That boy doesn't eat like a village man," one old man whispered after Kweku left the chop bar. "Did you see how he used a fork for fufu?" And finally Amma. They were walking after one long day. The sky had blushed purple-orange, and the crickets were beginning their evening orchestra. "You know," she said out of nowhere, "your phone is not a cheap one. And you wear the same dusty slippers every day. But your wristwatch is very shiny." He laughed. "Observant. I'm just saying," she trailed off, looking ahead. "You don't exactly fit the mold." He looked at her. "And if I don't?" He shrugged. "Then maybe you're just someone searching for something." He nodded quietly. That night, Kweku sat alone in his guest house, scrolling through the news on his phone. Nobody in Biposo knew that their humble taximan had once closed a business deal with the Emir of Kano, or that Forbes had once put him on the 30 under 30 list. But none of that seemed important here. Still, something tugged at him. His assistant back in Accra, Della, had sent a message. "Sir, the board is getting worried. The press is starting to ask questions about your absence. Your father also called again." He sighed. His father. Kwame Boateng. The king of logistics, concrete, and political donations. A man whose voice could buy silence. But he didn't want to be his father. Not yet. The next morning things took a turn. Taxi was missing. Kweku stood in front of the spot where he always parked it, right by the tree with the crooked branch. But it was gone. Vanished. He looked around. Nothing. Just chickens pecking at sand and a curious goat staring at him. "Stolen," he whispered. Then laughter erupted behind him. He turned. A group of villagers, including Amma, her grandmother, and the two mango tree fighters, stood holding buckets of paint, balloons, and palm leaves. The taxi was behind them. But now it was different. It was painted in bright red and yellow patterns, with ribbons tied to the side mirrors and a big sign on the windshield. "Thank you, Kweku, the kind taxi man." His jaw dropped. Amma stepped forward. "We all talked. You've helped everyone in this village. Gave people free rides. Helped Ma Corker carry firewood. Even fixed Kojo's broken sandals. You didn't have to, but you did." He blinked. "So, you decorated my taxi?" "Yes," Amma said, smiling. "Because tomorrow is Founders' Day festival. And you're going to be the Grand Marshal." Kweku's heart thudded. I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Just drive." The festival was like nothing he'd seen. There were dancers covered in white chalk and red cloth, drummers whose arms moved like whirlwinds, pots of soup big enough to swim in. The entire village turned out, and Kweku led the procession in his decked-out taxi, honking like royalty. Children rode in the back, women sang, and even the mango tree dispute was forgotten as both men sat in the same car, grinning with fresh mango juice on their lips. But the highlight came that evening. As fireworks exploded in the sky, yes, real ones, donated by the rich uncle of the village chief, Amma took Kweku's hand and led him to the edge of the celebration. The music dimmed behind them. "You've made a place for yourself here," she said softly. He looked at her. "I didn't plan to." "I know," she said. "But maybe you were meant to." He looked up at the stars. "Amma, there's something I have to tell you." "I know." He blinked. "You know." She smiled. "Not exactly. But I guess. You're no ordinary taxi man. Doesn't matter. You chose to be here. That's what counts." He reached for her hand again, tighter this time. "I came here to find something real. And I think I just did." From behind them, Ma Abia yelled, "If you two are done whispering, the yam-eating contest is starting." Amma laughed and pulled him back into the light. The night rolled on, laughter rising with every drumbeat. But for Kweku, this village, this festival, this girl, it was no longer just a chapter in a billionaire's escape. It was home. The festival had lit a new fire in Biposo. 4 days afterward, the village was buzzing. Aunties in the market sold Kweku Taxi Man keychains. The youth organized a new cleanup committee called Operation Shine Biposo. Even the chief declared that every Founders' Day going forward would include the Kweku Parade. It was all too much for someone trying to keep a secret. Kweku was now more than just the guy with the dusty taxi. He was a symbol of joy. And even though his disguise was still technically intact, he could feel the walls closing in. More than that, he didn't want to lie anymore. Not to Amma. Not to the village. Not to himself. One evening, he met with Nana Kwesi, the village chief. They sat under the big baobab tree where elders often met to talk about goats, rain, and politics. The chief sipped his palm wine and said, "You are hiding something, my boy." Kweku looked down. "Yes, sir. You're not from here." "No, sir." "You're not poor." "No, sir." The old man smiled. "And yet you've become one of us." Kweku looked up. "I didn't plan to." "You don't plan for blessings. They just arrive." He chuckled, then leaned closer. "Tell me, my boy, what do you plan now?" Kweku stared out at the fields. "I'm not sure. My father expects me to take over the company. The board keeps calling. But I don't know if I want to live in suits and meetings for the rest of my life." "Then don't." "I can't just walk away." "Why not?" the chief asked. "You have money. Build your own road." That stuck with Kweku. He drove home slowly that night. The stars above looked brighter somehow. Everything felt clearer until he got home. His father was waiting. In a white Range Rover. Parked right in front of the guest house. "Kwabena!" the old man thundered as soon as Kweku stepped out. Kweku froze. "Dad! 3 weeks. You disappear. No explanation. No response. Now I find you here, playing poor man in a village. Kweku raised a hand. Lower your voice. This isn't your boardroom. Kwame Boateng stepped forward. You are my son. And you're next in line to run the empire. What do you think this is? A vacation. Kweku exhaled slowly. It's not a vacation. It's a mission. His father scoffed. Mission. Please. I built this life so you would never have to suffer. But maybe that's the problem, Kweku said. I don't understand people. I don't know what real life feels like. You want real. Real is contracts, cement, power, elections. That's how we protect this family. Kweku looked him in the eye. And what if I want something different? For a moment silence. Then his father softened. Come home. Let's talk. Don't throw away everything I built. I'm not throwing it away. I'm building something new. His father gave him a long look. You sound like your mother. That cut deeper than intended. Kweku looked away. I'll leave tomorrow, the old man said. You have until then to decide. The next morning word spread like wildfire. The rich man came for Kweku. Gossip brewed at the market, at the barber shop, even during the early morning church cleaning. Amma didn't say a word. Not until she found him by the river. So, it's true, she said quietly. You're not just Kweku the taxi man. He nodded. Kweku Kwabena Boateng, son of the concrete king. She was quiet. I'm sorry, he added. Why? She asked. You didn't lie. Not really. You just didn't tell. He looked at her. I wanted to know if someone would like me without the money. She turned to him. And now that I know, are you leaving? He hesitated. I don't want to, he said. But you might. I don't know. She took a deep breath. Then don't ask me to wait. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. That night, Kweku didn't sleep. He sat by the road watching trucks go by, remembering every conversation, every smile, every ride he gave. He thought about Maakua's song, about the twins who made peace, about the chief's words, and about Amma. Sunrise, he made a decision. He met his father at the guesthouse gate. I'm not coming back to Accra. Not now. His father frowned. What? I need time. I want to build something of my own. I want to help this village. His father looked confused. Help? With what? With everything. Transport, clean water, school supplies. But not with your name. With mine. Silence. Then the old man nodded slowly. You've changed. Kweku smiled. Maybe for the better. You'll need help. I'll ask when I need it. His father looked at him long and hard. Then he gave him the keys to the Range Rover. 4 deliveries. Kweku chuckled and hugged him. That afternoon he went to Amma's house. She opened the door, arms folded. I'm staying, he said. She didn't move. I want to be here. For the people. For you. If you'll let me. She blinked once. Then smiled. You still have to drive the taxi. He grinned. Of course. She pulled him in for a hug. Behind them someone yelled. Kweku the lover boy. And just like that, everything felt right again. 3 months had passed since Kweku chose to stay in Biposo. The village had changed. Brightened, expanded, recharged. But the most surprising transformation wasn't in the buildings, the new borehole, or the renovated community center. It was in Kweku himself. He still drove his rickety yellow taxi. Only now it had Village Hero painted on the doors in red. He'd turned it into a mobile library by day and a storytelling booth by night. Kids piled into the back seat just to hear him read aloud or act out tales with wild voices. He'd also opened Kwabena Connect, a community kiosk with Wi-Fi, solar charging, and an idea box where locals could submit thoughts on what the village needed. Every Friday, he gathered those suggestions at the community square to read aloud and vote on. But the biggest project was underway, the Friendship Hub. It would be the first ever youth center in the district, complete with a small digital studio, a food bank, a learning space, and 2 offices for startups. Kweku personally trained 5 young people from the village to run it. One of them was Bismarck, the boy who used to wash the taxi. "You said I was sharp," Bismarck reminded him one morning. "So I sharpened myself." Kweku laughed. "That's what I'm talking about." Another was Akua, who once told Amma she'd never be more than a dress seller. Akua now ran a booming TikTok channel called Biposo Style, filming colorful village fashion shoots, mini comedy skits, and inspirational videos. One even went viral, captioned, "Real friends don't care what you own. They care what you carry inside." It reached over 2 million views. That same week, a black Prado pulled up in front of the new hub. The door opened. It was Kwame Boateng. "Dad?" Kweku asked, stunned. The old man stepped out slowly, looking around. His eyes scanned the children chasing a plastic ball on the grass, the aunties selling wache from a stall, the painted signs, the colorful Kent streamers. He turned to his son and simply said, "You built this?" Kweku nodded. "With the village." Kwame looked at him for a long time. "And you're happy?" Kweku smiled. "The happiest I've ever been." That night, father and son sat at a wooden bench under the stars, sharing roasted groundnuts and sabalo. "I always thought power came from owning things," Kwame admitted. "But you've made me realize, it comes from giving." Kweku raised a brow. "You said that. Don't tell the board," Kwame joked. They both laughed. As the weeks turned into seasons, word spread beyond Biposo. Journalists came. NGOs came. Young people from neighboring towns started visiting the hub. Everyone wanted to meet the billionaire in disguise. But Kweku had changed the story. "No," he'd always say. "I'm the friend in disguise." And Amma. She became more than a friend. Their first kiss was in the back seat of the old taxi, with a laughing toddler knocking on the window and yelling, "Uncle Kweku, stop romancing and drive." They married a year later, in a ceremony that blended royalty with rural simplicity. Even the chief wept. At the reception, Kweku stood with a microphone and addressed the crowd. "When I came here I was lost. I had money but I didn't have meaning. I had business plans but no joy. I thought I'd find love pretending to be poor. But what I found was richer than I ever imagined." He looked at Amma. "I found a place where people care, where community matters, where a taxi can change a life." He raised his glass. "To Biposo, the village that became my heart." The crowd erupted. Drums started. Auntie Dora screamed. Even Kwame Boateng danced. Years passed, but the story of Kweku the taxi billionaire became legend. Children retold it. Travelers came searching for truth. Some even said that if you entered Biposo with pride, you left with purpose. And in a dusty corner near the library, the old yellow taxi sat parked, clean, honored, decorated with painted handprints and the words, "True wealth is when someone chooses you without knowing your fortune." And beneath it, in bold letters, "He drove to find friendship and stayed for love."